change is what happens, is when you really don't expect it.
Change can mean progress.
Change can be beneficial.
Change may not always be for the better.
Change is good if it's an improvement in how things are within the hospital.
Change for the future.
It's exciting and exhilarating.
Some people don't like change, but once they get used to it, they find out that it's for the better.
Should be better, could be better, might be scary.
Change is about moving on, looking forward to the future.
Will this new area building lead to more enlightened treatment?
When you're going into a new hospital, change is really going to make a big impact on people's lives.
It can be unfounded fear and there'll be nothing to be frightened for.
Change can be traumatic and upsetting, but hang on in there.
Everything changes. Some things change quickly, others take a little longer. Even here at the hospital, with so many rules and schedules and protocols and things seemingly set in stone, the wind of change still whistles through the fence to make sure things progress and move on. When I first came to the hospital, it was the biggest change of my life. So much had to change, so much to suddenly be faced with and come to terms with. Meeting after meeting after meeting, so many new faces, it was overwhelming. Adjusting to life on the ward was challenging, stressful. The day room was daunting. Funny how you can be sat there in a crowd but feel so alone, so isolated. I sat there, lost in my own thoughts, but even those were drowned out by the voices I was sure were talking about me, and the eyes I was sure were watching me. A room full of strangers, each with their own stories to tell, but I didn't feel like sharing my story. I didn't even know what my story was. It was somehow muddled in my head, like a fog had descended.
I remember first when I came into the hospital, I just came for a meeting and I was in a three-piece suit and I was quite well dressed. A number of patients all scurried together and into the smoke room. You could hear them just whispering, who is that, who is that? And as I sat and I waited till they'd finished their smoke and they came to a decision of who I was, and they came in and says, that's the new doctor. I just sat back and had a smile at myself, you know. I wish it had been true. Eventually I had to burst their bubble and tell them that I was a fellow patient.
So many memories float around this place. Old tales travel the corridors long after the people who told them have gone. Stories passed on from person to person, told and retold over the years until they become like strange fairy tales or legends that take on a life of their own, like ripples in a pond. Even now, people casually talk about how things used to be years ago. Faceless staff in white coats and black caps, endless locking doors, dark memories. I suppose for some it was like that. Medicated and locked in your room, every day the same. Nothing to do, and only the view from the window reminding you that time was passing. It's not like that now, of course. I suppose that had to change, but your room does quickly become such an important part of the picture. Some call it their sanctuary, the one small space that allows them to feel in control and at peace, a small space that is their own. That's what I found after only a few days here. A few minutes' peace to sit and think, and the small space begins to feel a little bigger, Funny that when you're at your most confined, you can feel most free. Away from the hubbub, you can find your thoughts. The familiarity of the room becomes a comfort. Television, music, reading, writing, they become comforts too. All part of the experience of living in a ward, all part of the change.
My earliest memory of the state hospital was when I was admitted to Lomond Ward, and what I could hear most of all was the oyster catchers calling from the roof. They called down through the air vents, and at night time I could hear them calling through the window from the grass outside.
When I came to the hospital, they'd sound the trains going across the track. Every night as I retired, they came to an ambient sound in the background. During the night, they run to the hour. You can hear them peeping to the horns, and then across the railway tracks, quite loud. You can identify a place with these sort of sounds, especially when they're for so long. It's somewhat comforting.
In my room I hear the sound of silence. So I don't have a television. I hear silence.
Whether the ward's busy or whether the ward's quiet, whether it's night or whether it's day, if I need to separate myself from the people around me, I put my earphones in and listen to my music, and that separates me from them.
The sound of trains, planes, even the echo of a distant ice cream van become a comforting connection to life going on in the outside world. The birdsong, the rasping of crows, the chatter you hear first thing in the morning, the jangle of keys, cutlery, shutters, food wagons, all the little unimportant sounds that become important simply because they are there. Not to mention some of the more repetitious phrases used by the staff.
Quick march, medication, medication, breakfast time, lunch up, first table, second table, anybody for ground access.
It's the things that stay the same, the constants that stand out all the more because change is happening all around them. And sometimes we cling to the things that can't or won't change simply because we know they will be there. We can rely on them. They are predictable. We can trust them. We can take comfort from the things that are familiar, but we need to accept change for things to get better. As a patient, things can change on a daily basis. Some days I don't feel right. Some days nothing feels right. I look in the mirror and see myself as I imagine others may see me, like some ugly caterpillar, insignificant, grotesque, everything I feel given physical form. It's not about how others see you, though. It's about how you see yourself, getting to the truth of who you are. That's the best and worst part of being at the hospital. All the things I keep inside are brought into the light. Sometimes I don't like what I see. Ultimately, it's not only about who you are, it's about how you are, how you fit into the world you're faced with. It can be a lonely place. Your mind becomes a difficult place. You become your own worst enemy, because sometimes you feel you're both the problem and the solution. You're the barrier and the way forward, and ultimately you can't see a way to untangle the knot. There is no way of running from yourself, from who you are. Thankfully, I've moved on from those thoughts. I'm beginning to untangle the knots, change for the better. And that change is happening outside as well as inside. The hospital itself is undergoing such dramatic changes affecting the staff just as much as the patients. The world is changing out there. As soon as the machines arrived, it was clear that things were going to change dramatically, day by day, week by week, month by month, piece by piece. Great mechanical dinosaurs ripping up the landscape, tearing through buildings, levelling the past to make way for the future. And yet, at first it was easy to not even notice it, like a television left on in the background, full of activity and always doing something, yet strangely invisible. But sure enough, the mechanical dinosaurs drew ever closer, and the hospital's redevelopment began to change everyday life. For the buildings to come down, new fences had to go up. Familiar areas of the hospital grounds became closed off. Pavements and roads that were once walked every day suddenly led nowhere, and signposts no longer showed the way. Every so often, new fences would bubble up, more buildings would come down, and then more fences would appear, keeping us safely in the eye of the storm as new buildings began to rise out of the surrounding flurry of activity. Work carried on season after season, the hospital slowly but surely evolving, more and more new buildings taking their place in the landscape. Modern, spacious, bright, the dark corridors of the old wards gone, lighter, brighter materials replacing the dark wooden frames and old furnishings. Some have said that all of this upheaval is confusing, stressful. Some even want to shut it out, pretend it's not happening, clinging to how things are and how things were. It would be all too easy to want to stay in bed, wrapped in the quilt, cocooned against whatever the day brings. But nothing changes if you do that. How can it? The hospital is our cocoon, a protective shelter, secure for a purpose. And inside that cocoon, personal journeys are undertaken, but not travelled alone. And unlike some temporary shelter from the storm, support is ongoing, change is nurtured. It's not just the buildings that are changing. It can't be just that. A building can change, but it's what happens inside that matters, and change has been happening at the hospital for a long, long time. Changes in treatment, routine, opportunities, attitudes, the people you see and the help you are given. Old barriers between staff and patients are eroding. There's a very definite feeling that staff are working with you. You can feel the new mood. Attitudes have changed on all sides, but you have to be prepared to trust in those who are there to help you and put your cards on the table. You have to take a long, hard look at yourself, challenge your thoughts, find your way through them, and come to terms with things. Look yourself in the eye and face up to who you are. Start untangling the knots. New skills are learned. Old problems are worked through. Learn about yourself. Learn to accept the things you cannot change. Find the courage to change the things you can, and learn to know the difference. To me, it's simple education. And through that simple education, things have changed for me. Opportunities have opened up for me like doors on the horizon. Trust has been strengthened, friends have been made, and the day room is no longer a place to dread. There may be dark days yet to be faced and challenges to be overcome, but everything feels more positive. It's more than just fresh paint. Things are changing at the hospital. There will always be things to grumble about. There are things to grumble about anywhere. The trick is to remember that there will always be things to be positive about. There's always a brighter day ahead. You may have to wait. You may need to change so many things to help it along, but it is coming. A new hospital, a new mood, a brightness on the horizon. Things will be different, things will progress. Some things will change quickly, others may take a little longer. Everything changes for a reason.
I'll sing this to your nation. Just simple education can take away frustration. The things I've learnt are simple. Beliefs and common sense, values and forgiveness, with no macho arrogance. I'll sing this to your nation. Just simple education can take away frustration. So if you're feeling crazy, just challenge all your thoughts. Replace it with something beautiful to make you feel relaxed. I'll sing this to your nation. Just simple education can take away frustration. Untangle all the knots. If you think too much it rots. Just get the optimistic cure for all the rich and all the poor. So sing this to your nation. Just simple education can take away frustration. It doesn't change my dedication or help with the frustration. The only thing that's worked is simple education.